Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where our purpose is to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve your organisation sustainably. Learn how to achieve and sustain an excellence journey for yourself, others, and the planet.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet.
Hi all, today I have on the show with me a person who's taught me so much, a good friend of mine, Mr Alex Teoh. Alex is a true legend in the field of enterprise excellence. We're going into the psychology side of achieving enterprise excellence today, delving into attitude and behaviour. This is such an important topic. Creating a culture of continuous improvement and innovation is all about change, and that means it's all about the mind of the people involved, the culture of the organisation, but the adaptation and evolution of that mind and capability. To help you explore this topic further, we have loaded an ideal behaviour exploration template to the download section of our website, enterpriseexcellencepodcast.com/downloads. Hope you gain it, get good value from the template, and help improve your culture of continuous improvement innovation. Let's get to the episode. Welcome to episode 142 of the Enterprise Excellence Podcast.
It is such a pleasure to have Mr Alex Teoh on the show with us today. Alex is a global expert in enterprise excellence. He has worked with and helped many of our largest organisations, including Pfizer, Abbot, Bosch, and many more. Alex is a Shingo Trainer and Assessor. He has recently been working on the psychology and mindset of continuous improvement, which we'll explore today. Let's get into the episode. Alex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Brad, for having me.
I really appreciate it, mate. I'm looking forward to learning. Alex, why does improving behaviour play such a large part in achieving excellence within an organisation?
When we talk about behavior, is a lot of people just related to actions, yeah. But behavior could be things that we do explicitly, and also is being known that if inappropriate behavior will lead into less than ideal outcome. Now, these simple logics actually get multiplied many times through many people within an organization. Collectively, it will have an impact on the performance in the company, and especially in the space of culture. People talk about workplace culture, great place to work, and that behavior piece have a profound impact on this area.
Wow. So what you're saying, mate, is that explicit behavior that people see and this collective behavior of what people see will ultimately impact your culture. Now, mate, in businesses, right, that I typically know of, most leaders, we want growth, we want sales, we want profit. Maybe if we're not for profit, we want to get more out of the money we got. And also, too, there's a big driver now on reducing impact, safety on people, and also environment. Like, how does shifting culture play a part in actually getting us more of that, mate? Like, like.
This is where, like you mentioned earlier, the learning from Shingo Institutes, and we have a model called Shingo model, which actually address what you mentioned earlier. Now, when we talk about organization focus on profit, focus on growth, and all these what we call the classical business performance indicators, we are after result. Yeah. So organization is after result. And this is ultimately important. Without those results, we won't be able to continue, right? So business leaders have this very natural tendency, or they have proven capability in deliver this result. And if you think carefully, and all these results actually coming from the system that they implemented in their organization, or the tools that they use, right, to help them to achieve the result. And that's why organizations tend to invest in technologies by new processing line and all these kind of things. So those are the systems that a lot of business leaders will be evaluating and investing in it. Now, a deeper understanding is from single model is this. It's great. Your system sometimes can deliver good result, but it is a lot of organizations find is hard to sustain over a long period of time. Is whether we get it right or, in the future, can we continuously get it right? So that become a challenge for a lot of organizations. Now, it lead us to trying to research more into this space. And the great understanding is this: behind the system, behind the tools is always people. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Right. Now, people it's unlike machines. When you switch on, it will work accordingly. Yeah. Every individual come with our uniqueness, our thinking, and our capabilities. Yeah. So that will bring an impact into the system, how we work. Right. So the behavior part, right, will actually have a strong influence to the system, hence, will influence the ultimate result.
Mm-hmm. I can't argue with that mathematics, mate. Like you explained it very well. Like behind any good system or software or technology, someone typically has got to use it. Yep. And depending on their behavior, it's going to be a good outcome or a bad outcome, which then, mate, I guess there's been a lot written about on behavior and a lot spoken about on behavior. And you're going to that extra depth, mate, and with the work you're doing at the minute and together with, psychologists and people that you're connected with, around the mindset and how the mindset and our conscious and unconscious mind or our psychology can actually drive our behavior and influences our behavior in a big way. Do you mind explaining why that plays out? Like, why does what we think, I guess, or not think in our subconscious mind actually drive our behavior?
I think everyone can relate to this is right. When you are in a bad mood, you don't feel like working or you do terrible things. Yeah. Right. And when in a good day, you can do the same things, right? And, it will produce better result and you take lesser time, right? So that is actually the reason why we get curious about this. It's just based on this simple analogy. But then behind this is, right, it make me, as we look into this is right, we're looking at behavior into two parts, right? One is, right, how we behave is actually led by the logical thinking, our mindset. This is the right thing to do, and when come this thing, I should do this, right? So our mindset actually produce a set of behavior, right? And that behavior will lead to an outcome, right? A result, right? And the result, whether it's satisfactory or is the result that make you feel good or the result that meet your what we call business objective. Yeah. So that is the natural process. I mean, in a simple way that we can understand. And the other aspect of it is what we call the reinforcement. Because you have done it this way and it produced good result, it will reinforce your belief into the things that you did, your behavior that you did. So there's a reinforcement loop. As you go through this loop more and more often, your mindset becomes firm and you form your own thinking. You form opinions about a certain things. So that is the logical thinking. Yeah. And once you do it more and more often, it becomes unconscious. It becomes sort of move it into what we call the autopilot mode, right? So, and that it shifts the logical thinking into the what we call the subconscious mind. Yeah, it moves into that space, and it's very natural. Every time it comes to 9 o'clock, you got to go for your coffee break, kind of things, right? There's a trigger, and then you automatically do things, right? So that gets us interested into what we call, right? How can we move a conscious behavior into a subconscious behavior, right? A conscious behavior is something in our continuous improvement space, is something that we can coach, something that we can lead to, right? Eventually, could it lead to what we call the unconscious behavior? When we form into that unconscious behavior, that means, it stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess to Alex, any of our listeners looking at their organization, I'm sure they're going to look at it and go, right, there's some ideal behaviors that are really good. And there's some behaviors that aren't really good, or that we need to alter.
Yeah.
Mate, what's some of the biggest forces or the most prominent ways that people can shift, behavior? Like who or what can you do to start people thinking consciously about things differently, and then practice that down to the unconscious mind where it then becomes habit and we've got that new behavior?
Yeah, you're touching on a very, very important point, is right. Okay, who is responsible to make changes, right? And that lead to another questions, right? Who is actually needed to make changes? Yeah. So there's a series of questions of understanding is really important, right? Now, if we put that into a business organization, right? Now, if you allow me, I probably will break it into sort of like 3 layers of functions or authority, if you may, right? The first is the leader, the top at a leadership's level, right? And those people have this responsibility to lead the organization, yeah. And then you got the middle level, what I call it the manager level, that manage day to day, right? Whether things are in line with what we're supposed to do. Of course, then we have the frontline teams where we execute, we do the tasks, right? Now, traditionally, we always say that we need to have a process, we need to have a standard work lock-in. Yeah. And the standard work is actually help us to manage day to day, right? We lock in a certain process, and then we get people to stick and follow the standard work. Now we starting to set a expectation of certain behavior. Okay, so a lot of leaders find it challenging that get people to follow that prescribed behavior standards or prescribed process, hence require a certain set of behavior, right? But the funny thing is, right, we don't measure it. We just let it happen, right? What we measure is the outcome of that process, right? That is what we call KPI, key process indicator. Towards the outcome, right? This is how many units we produce, how many cases we close, and how long it takes, kind of things, yeah? But how people actually struggle with it, we could audit it based on the process audit. It's strictly what I call from the logical mind, step 1, step 2, step 3, right? But there is a lot of rooms open out, right? When I execute step 1, do I do it? Do I do it with a happy mind, or do I do it with ease, or do I approach the work with frustrations? Yeah. So those are the areas that is not well understood, right? Let me give you an example, right? We can approach coming to work, right? Attend a particular meeting, a routine meetings, right? But everyone gets so frustrated. Oh, right, it's so dreadful to attend that meeting, and yet we have to go through that process. Yeah, and that negative feeling could affect how we think, and hence can affect our behavior, and somehow will impact on the outcomes. Yeah, so that leads us to trying to understand, right? Okay, the behavior space really have a strong impact.
You can imagine that behavior of whether I rock up to a meeting with a bad mindset where I hate this, I'm feeling bad, and I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, or I come up to the meeting and I'm like, wow, I'm engaged, this is a great meeting, there's always good outcomes from this, I'm going to speak up, my voice is required, my voice is respected.
Yes.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
And else, what plays the biggest part then of a behavior at the front line? You got the frontline behavior with meetings, which might be, are you turning up with the attitude or the mindset of negativity, which leads to not talking, or you turn up with an attitude where you're feeling positive and engaged. What's the largest influencer on that? Like, what largely be an impact, or how do you manage that with a frontline employee? What impacts on it?
I think this boils down to how we engage them, right? So I always use this as an analogy is, right, leader and follower. Yeah. And a lot of frontline teams come and needed to be led by someone. Okay. So obviously, we got to look at the quality of that leadership. Yeah. Okay. So then how that leader engage the rest of the team. Okay, so that is become the engagement piece, right? Now, I know that a lot of us have this structured way of running this meeting, right? We go through the standard, good practice. We look at this, we look at that, and we do it between the time frames, yeah. And some of us are very good. We let people to speak up, and we listen to the feedback and all these things. Now, in this way, we actually prescribe a standard of behavior. Logical side, we expect that to happen, right? But then the other psychology impact is the well-being of the people. How do we understood that, and how do we deal with that, right? That is equally important as well. So understand the behavior is sort of like we're trying to make sure we win right from the beginning. Is people happy? We have any obstacles, right? If we can remove all these obstacles, it helps us to make that process, right, go through smoothly. So, the process structure is important. That's what we call the logical behavior need to be in place. When we have that, then we need to move into the psychology space. How can we make people more engaged, right? And, right, we all always say that having a come to work in a safe environment, right?
Yeah.
It's a statement, but there's a wish list. But how can we make them feel that way? That has to be from the psychological space. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great. So I hear two parts to that, mate. I hear that, like in the meeting example, the way that we run the meeting or the process of the meeting could impact their attitude and their behavior. Like if it's a labored, boring process, or I guess more short, sharp, and action oriented. And then there's another part you're talking about, which is then the psychology side, which you're mentioning the like leadership behavior. I'm reading between the lines and hearing you talk about the mindset, or the mindset and psychology and behavior of the leader will ultimately play a part in impacting the mindset and behavior, or attitude and behavior of the employee.
Yeah.
So,
it's
mate,
so often that I hear that, when I ask people, right, how do you describe the culture of your workplace? They say, okay, what culture? Then we explain what culture. Oh, the culture is what my boss say, right? The leaders has a strong influence. Yeah, it's just the parents of a family have a strong influence on the the children's behavior, the children's mindsets, and eventually it shaped the personalities. Yeah.
An interesting conversation on that last night, Alex, where I was chatting to someone and they were talking to me about external forces impacting an employee, and him or her coming to work with the external attitude impact. But this person then said to me, no, well, what I've coached our leaders on to do is to understand the interruption. What is it from home, or what is it that's leading to that attitude and behavior of the person, and getting to an understanding? And this case, it was a really interesting case, but they discovered what it was, and then they were able to make an improvement actually then in this employee's attitude. So even, I guess, in that situation where it's something from home, the leader's behavior resulted in a dramatic outcome at work that drove great results for that person and for the whole team.
Yes, this is classical again and again. We hear this report that organization, for example, right, pay attention on female workers, needs of childcare and all these kind of things, that boosts productivity, boost morale, right? This is a classical example to understand deeper into this space, because whatever you do right have an impact on the psychological well-being, right, of your employees. So this is a lot of organizations sort of like push this away to HR. All right, this is sort of, you guys going to handle it. And a lot of places, the HR does not have that capability to understand overall, right? If you ask me, it should be like through a lot of interactions, understand the needs, and hence, what are the few critical things that we should do right. That's a principle of continuous improvement. We can't win all battle, but what are the few key roadblocks in terms of making our employee healthier or happier, right? Mental well-being? What are the few things that if we can identify and then we do it, right? Some of them is through policy, right? But a lot of survey and research come back is because people are unhappy is because of my immediate boss, or because of my co-workers. Right? Now that is look at the individual behavior when you work, right? And the relationship with that towards the group behavior. So another understanding of the study of psychology is how individual thinks, and also how the individual influence between the group. So it's like individual behavior and group behavior. Now, this understanding is really important for leaders. If you want to lead, you have to lead a group of people, right? When we talk about the top leaders, is how you lead will shape the behavior, hence determine or nurture the culture of the workplace.
I'm getting you there, Alex. I got an example in my mind from past on what you're talking about, where I had a leader who had a very toxic team member. He or she was in a bad place, and he or she wasn't engaging on it, was just letting it happen. Well, that leadership behavior of just letting that keep going was leading to a
say this is okay.
Poor outcome on the culture. Whereas I guess that previous example that I mentioned that I heard about last night created an amazing outcome on culture.
So if following on your line of conversation, it seems like there's a lot of challenge on the leaders to watch like every space. Some of the leaders might say, "Oh, this is and when they come to work, they're supposed to work, right? If they don't work, then we let the HR deal with it, right?" So because we all are busy, but then as you go to learn from the world best organization, you find that the top leader, especially the CEO or whatever, in fact, they put a lot of their time in dealing with cultural issue. So you will hear them like shaping the policy, enforcing the value of the company, the vision of the company, right? They're doing things to provide what we call the directions, right? And then, if you do it right, it will actually shape how people think and hence how people behave. So, and the leadership piece, the leader's behavior is really important.
Well, that's a question I'm sure the listeners have got, Alex. I'd be keen to ask you. Like, it sounds like a bit of a chain reaction that a leader's mindset or psychology will influence his or her behavior, which will then influence employees' mindset or attitude, and then their behavior. How do you go about influencing and supporting behavior change in leaders, particularly when we've mentioned, mate, that a lot of it can be driven by the subconscious mind, inbuilt attitudes and emotions and behaviors that are not even conscious. They don't even know they're doing it. How do you go about altering that baby? That's a tough one.
This is a very, very important question, right? There's a lot of leaders, they are well read, they're well informed, they're well trained. In fact, perhaps from the previous workplace, they have positive experience, looking at all those great practices that put in place, like Gemba walk, leaders, standard work, they go and then they coach people, they do all those kind of things. But somehow there's no guarantee like doing this great structure, the results stick. Yeah. And that leads us to examine, right? Oh, wow. You could doing that routine, you could practice that right behavior, logical behavior, I'm saying. For example, you take time off, you conduct that one-to-one meetings with people. You take time off from your busy schedule, you go to the Gamba and you visit, look at the harder boards and talk to people, right? Somehow it's still really not stick or not reaching to that expectation. Now that lead to the questions, right? Is there any area that I did wrong, right? So some of people will be understood that we expecting my subordinate to behave in a certain way, right? And some of them put some standard on their own, right? How should I behave? I would commit to this. Now this is all logical behavior, right? But is there any other things that you did unconsciously actually become a roadblock to this? For example, I know that a certain behavior, they know that is a good behavior to give recognition when people doing well, and they force themselves, they do it this way, right? But then unconsciously is that the tone of phrasing might not be that nice, the voice, or the wordings, or certain
robotic.
things.
Well done,
Yeah,
Jay. That
yeah,
was good.
that's right. Yeah. So how can this leader that recognize this, right? The important things here is for them to be willing to sort of search themselves. How do I know my behavior is right? Right? How do I know, this thing is really working? Or is there any area that I can do right? Right. So the first thing, to help them to improve, right, is to be able to realize that this is important. If I want to be really good, I need to explore my vulnerability. Yeah. So the way to go about it, if they agree on it, right, commonly we'll advise, let's do a 360, review or feedback section. Get the people that close to you to share their inputs. Yeah. Hence you can learn from them, right? So this is a simple logic. Like if you're a leader, you lead a team of people. How you lead a team of people, don't listen to outside voice, right? You've got to listen to your team of people. What do they say about your leaderships? What do they say? How do they feel your behavior, right, during the interaction? So there is a pool of what, I always tell them, right, is in fact, that is your gold mine, right? You dig into that, you can improve, right? So, like in Shingo principle, we always say, like, respect and humility. Yeah. So that is a real challenge to a lot of leaders. Sometimes, can they come to this space, right, to be willing to, look at their own weaknesses and vulnerability, and then hence, willing to be accountable for it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of that vulnerability, doesn't it? That's being spoken about a lot at the moment. And so I can see, Alex, what you're mentioning is like the 360. It's, I guess, about being vulnerable and seeking that feedback to then be able to learn from it. And then I guess it comes back to what you said earlier. Then it's about that motivation and practice.
Yes, right. Yeah.
To make that new behavior then become unconscious behavior that's stronger than the old behavior.
That's right. Because the logical behavior we can learn, we can benchmark. There's just a few, right? And to strengthen that is the psychology bit, right? And when you pick it up, then you will think differently, right? And then if you do that practice enough, right, you will see that there is a shift in attitudes. Yep. We commonly hear that from the feedback. Then we say, oh, the attitude changed. Right. So that is a very powerful thing. When you do that, your next level of managers or leaders, right, immediately will see that, this work, right? And then they can learn from it. And, humbleness, humility actually can be taught, right? Or can be shared or can be molded through your leading by example.
Yeah.
Right. And they pick it up and they change, and perhaps they go to seek feedback from their reports, right? Imagine if you do it right, that can be so powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's so simple, but it's not easy because we're talking habit change, aren't we?
That's right.
It takes vulnerability, it takes learning, it takes motivation, it takes practice, and potentially, am I correct that it might take some help too? Is this where people might look at a mentor and a coach to help them also?
Yes, assistant helps, and it's always great to have a third party to sit in, because a neutral party always able to get a message across, because this kind of process involves a lot of communications, right? And traditionally, we don't not comfortable with that kind of communication. So we always encourage, right? You get a coach, you got a mediator in between, right? Got to be qualified people so that you, coaching us to the right space.
Well,
and beside that, there is also another critical commitment is time, right? So, we are so busy, So, there's awareness of right now we all are health conscious, right? Even though a lot of executives are so busy, we make time for exercise, we take care of our good health, right? It's the same thing with this practice.
Yeah, the practice of feedback, reflection, learning, support, new habit formation. Alex, I'm thinking with time and future episodes, I would love to get you back on to go deeper into this topic around altering behavior and leadership and support that we can go into. I think this has been an amazing conversation based on the high level flows of behavior and the part that psychology plays. Mate, to finish off my questions for you today, mate, what's been a recent insight for you that has altered your attitude and behavior, mate?
Oh, you got me there. I think one of the big things is, right, be complacent. Yeah. So I understand that if you do certain things, right, repeat and repeat, you thought that you're getting better and better, right? And you tend to relax. Yeah. So this is what I say, right? The transition between logical things, right? After a while, you become a habit, and you thought that you have a good habit, but that habit can slide. Yeah. So my biggest intake is, right, it's really hard for you to call it a habit. Yeah. When you call it a habit, it should be really stick. Yeah. But a lot of time we don't stick. We just put less energy because it's easier, right? And we just backslidden. So that's an insight. And also that probably the area for future learning is, right, how do we actually, can habit really being sustained, right? Yeah.
That's a good point. And we'll definitely delve into that one more deeply for our listeners in the next episode. Alex, thank you so much for joining us, mate, and sharing your knowledge and insights on this really important area, because it's actually going deeper than behavior itself to what actually creates and influences behavior. And, mate, I really appreciate it. How can people reach out and get in touch and learn more from you, mate?
Yeah, you're welcome to visit our website, www.keysendconsulting.com, or you can reach me on 0405 403 341.
Thanks, Alex.
Yes, thank you.
And
or you reach out they can reach out to you. You can help me. Pass on the contacts. Yeah,
everyone, you can come through the Enterprise Excellence podcast to contacts. Now, it's just a spelling on KeySense for people, mate, on the website too.
Key is key, K-E-Y. Sense is the sensors, right? S-E-N-S-E, Keysense Consulting.
.com. Great.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate your time and knowledge, mate, on such a critical topic. Thanks for helping us create a better future.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad, for having me.
Cheers, mate. We'll be back again and have you again soon. Cheers, mate.
Remember, you can download our ideal behaviour exploration template from the website enterpriseexcellencepodcast.com/downloads. There were 2 key takeaways for me from this episode. Firstly, the power of defining ideal behaviours. It is powerful if you start with the frontline behaviours, where value is created for customers, where people also get injured, where quality issues can be created. Define what some ideal behaviours at the frontline would be if we were living our culture and aligned strategically, and the customers. Then consider the ideal behaviours you would need to see at frontline leadership to get these behaviours at the front line. Do the same step for middle management, considering frontline leadership, and then senior leadership, considering middle management behaviours. The attitude and behaviour of leaders above us, particularly our direct leaders, impacts our attitude and behaviour heavily. This bottom-up ideal behaviour exploration can really help you understand what great looks like and start moving forward. The template on our website we've previously mentioned really helps with this process. The second key takeaway for me was turning behaviours into key behavioural indicators, measuring and improving these. What gets measured gets done and improved. Once a team has defined ideal behaviours, these can then be measured, coached and improved. This is a great technique to truly get forward movement with culture, measure and improve what is most important. Thanks again for your time and knowledge, Alex. Thanks for helping us create a better future. Bye for now.